Hi dear students, welcome back to the section of Mathematics of Class 10. Today we are going to study the new chapter, Quadratic Equations. Dear students, in our chapter number 2, we have already studied about quadratic polynomials, right? What were quadratic polynomials? The polynomial in which the degree is 2. If the degree of any polynomial is 2, that is what we call a quadratic polynomial. What is the difference between polynomial and equation? It's only this much that there will be an equal to sign and it should be equated to something else. That means if p of x is regarded as a quadratic polynomial, then if p of x is equal to 0, will be regarded as the quadratic equation. That's the difference. Now, regarding this quadratic equation and a quadratic polynomial, let me tell you some typical terms which we are going to deal with in this class. So in polynomials, I told you about zeros of a polynomial, right? Here we are going to find the solution of the quadratic polynomial, and you already know that for a quadratic equation, as the degree is 2, it means that there will be 2 zeros, and here we are going to use the word root of an equation instead of zeros. So whenever we want to find the solution of a quadratic equation, we will never say the solution of a quadratic equation, we will never say x and the other value of x. We will never say like that. We will say the roots of the equations. So there are 2 roots of this equation. So while solving the quadratic equation, definitely you are going to get 2 roots. Is that clear? The Greek mathematician Euclid has given the algebraic formula, or he has mentioned very clearly how to solve a given quadratic equation. Actually, we should be very proud that the Indian mathematicians, those who lived years ago, they gave the clarity to find the solution of a quadratic equation, especially Sridharacharya. And the Sridharacharya equation, it's also given like this, the Sridharacharya's equation, or it's also called commonly the quadratic equation. So we are going to deal with these things in this chapter, and here in this chapter we are going to study how to solve a given quadratic equation. And let me tell you, the general form of a quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And here a, b and c, the small letters a, b and c are integers. And one thing is very important, a should not be equal to 0. That's very important. The first term, that means the coefficient of x square should never be equal to 0. That's very important, okay? So any equation whose degree is 2 is what we call the quadratic equation. And for every quadratic equation, there will be 2 roots while solving the quadratic equation. And in this chapter, we are going to study the different methods to solve a given quadratic equation. In your previous class, in your 9th class, you have already studied how to solve a given quadratic equation by the method of splitting the center term or splitting the middle term, right? So in this class, we are going to study 2 new more methods, which is what we call completing the square method, and the other one is what we call the quadratic formula, using the quadratic formula, or it is also called as using the Sridharacharya formula. So by using these 2 typical methods, we are going to deal with the solutions of quadratic equations. So mainly, whenever you are seeing a given equation, you have to check the degree of the equation. While checking the degree of the equation, you can understand whether it is a quadratic equation, or whether it is a cubic equation, or it is a biquadratic equation, or whether it is a linear equation, right? We have already studied about this one very clearly in our 2nd chapter of polynomials. Okay, anyhow, in this chapter, most probably there is a possibility that the question used to come from 1 mark or 2 mark questions. It used to come like this. Simply they will be given a particular equation and they will ask you to identify whether it is a quadratic equation or not. So the only thing which you have to check means you have to bring them into the general form. Bringing them to the general form means first of all you have to arrange the degree of the order in such a way that you have to bring them in the decreasing order. Okay, means the highest degree should come in the first place, then the next degree, then the lower degree, like that towards the last, the constant term, then that's equal to 0, like that it should be written. Okay, so when you are arranging them in the decreasing order of their powers, and if you found that the degree of the quadratic equation is 2, that is what we call the quadratic equation. So sometimes they may be asked like this questions that you have to check out whether they are quadratic or not. What you have to do, arrange them in the decreasing order of their powers and make sure that the first one is x square or y square or t square, whatever it is, degree should be 2 or the power should be 2. The highest power should be 2. And if the highest power of the given equation is 2, definitely we can come to the conclusion that the given thing is a quadratic equation. Clear? Okay, now let us deal with some questions, and actually here this is the introduction part of the chapter, so very fast let us deal with some examples of these questions. Okay, so here goes the question before you. In this question you have to represent them in the quadratic equation, represent them in the form of quadratic equations. Here goes the first question before you. The product of two consecutive positive integers is 306. We have to find the integers. That means the product of two consecutive positive integer. What does it mean by consecutive? The numbers which lies very near to each other. For example, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, like that. They are called consecutive numbers. So here it is given that the product of two consecutive positive integer. So definitely we are going to deal with x. See, this chapter is so important because most of them, they used to get confused with the linear equations in two variables and quadratic equation, because some children, they have no idea by reading the question whether this comes from quadratic equation or whether this question is from linear equations. I will tell you how to understand that one. Now let us focus on this one. See here, it is given like this, that two consecutive integers. Normally whenever we are seeing two consecutive integers, we will take one is x and another is y. If we were studying, if in your mind it is coming something about a linear equation, two variables, one is x, another one is y. But here actually we are not going to take two variables. Instead we are going to deal with a single variable x, or it should be y. That's enough. Clear? So here, as it is mentioned that about consecutive positive integers, so one will be x, right? We will take, let the numbers be x, and what will be the next number? If one number is 2, what is the next number? It will be 3. If one number is 4, what is the consecutive number? 5. If one number is 6, what is the consecutive number? It is the next one, 7, right? 6, 7, 10, 11, like that. Means x plus 1. So we will take, let the numbers be x and x plus 1. So you got the numbers. Now, what is the hint given? What is the clue given in this statement? The product of the consecutive integers is 306, 306. That means x into x plus 1 is equal to 306. X into x plus 1 is equal to 306. Removing the brackets, what you will get? X into x plus 1 means x into x is x square. Then x square plus x is equal to 306. You got a quadratic equation. But is that in the standard form? No, because I told you, standard form, every time you must make sure that the right hand side should be equal to 0. But here you can see that the right hand side is not equal to 0. So take this 306 and put it on the LHS. So the equation becomes x square plus x minus 306 is equal to 0. So we got the quadratic equation. This is how we have to bring it to the quadratic equation. Okay. One more question. A train travels a distance of 480 kilometers at a uniform speed, and if the speed has been 8 kilometers less, it would have taken 3 hours more for completing the same journey. That means a train is running, it is traveling 480 kilometers in a typical speed. We don't know what is the speed. So if you don't know what is the speed, you will assume it as x, right? So let us start with the answer itself. Let the speed of the train be x kilometer per hour. Okay. Now, what is the total distance traveled? The total distance traveled is 480 kilometers. Now, what is the time taken? We are going to deal with the time, because in the second statement also it is something regarding time. It takes 3 more hours. 3 more hours means it's time. Time is mentioned. So next step, time is equal to, I'm saying this again and again because in some questions time may not be mentioned. There you will have to take about distance. So here specifically in the second statement, it's about the time which is it's mentioned here. So definitely you will have to go for time. So speed is equal to x kilometer per hour. Next step is time taken to complete 480 kilometers is equal to, what will be the time taken? You already know time taken is distance divided by speed, and distance is 480. So we can write distance divided by speed means 480 divided by x, that much hour, because it's time, so the unit should be hour itself. So 480 by x. Now the second condition, what is the second condition? Read the question. if the speed has been 8 kilometer less, means right now in what speed it is running? It is running in the x kilometer per hour, right? That is the speed, that is the current speed of the train, x kilometer per hour. So if it was 8 kilometer less, if it is going 8 kilometer per hour less, that means if the speed is x minus 8. So we will write the second condition, the speed of the train is equal to x minus 8 kilometer per hour. So here, what will be the time taken? The time taken will be distance divided by speed. So here you know the distance is 480. What about the speed? You already know it is x minus 8. But what about the timing? It's mentioned very clearly in the question that it will take 3 more hours. It will take 3 more hours. It will take 3 hours more to travel. So we can write time is equal to 480 divided by x plus 3. It will be x plus 3. Now, what do you know about the relation between speed, time and distance? You know that speed into time is equal to distance, and we are going to use that one. We are going to apply that one here. Speed into time is equal to distance, and here the speed is x minus 8 into the time is 480 divided by x plus 3 is equal to, what is the distance? 480. While solving this equation, you will get it as, towards the last you will get it as 3x square minus 8x minus 1280 is equal to 0. That means you got the quadratic equation 3x square minus 8x minus 1280 is equal to 0. There is no need to find the solution of this one because our question is just to frame the quadratic equation. We got the quadratic equation. So this is very important. Means when you are getting a question from the question, how to frame it into a non-quadratic equation. That's the very important point which we have to understand, because once if you got this one, if you got the quadratic equation, from this equation you have to apply, you can apply any of the methods so as to get the solution for this given quadratic equation. So getting the quadratic equation is very important. So I hope you understood how to reduce the given statement into a quadratic equation. So that's it for today's class. I hope you understood how to reduce the given statement into a non-quadratic equation. That means a non-quadratic equation. So this is all about today's class, and in tomorrow's class we are going to study how to solve these typical type of equations using different methods. So till then, take care and goodbye. Have a nice day.